Right, so this set of lessons is all about the CPU. Now this is the first lesson in the hardware unit. Now CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. There we go. And the central processing unit, this is a big key term. Okay, so whenever you ask what a CPU is, you have to do that. You have to know what that means, that stands for. Now, the job of the central processing unit is one thing, and that is to process instructions. As some of you now know from programming, when you write a program, it's one line does one command. Okay, so the job of the CPU is to process that one line of code. Now, there are three main parts inside a CPU. There is a program counter. There is an ALU, don't worry about the definition, we'll get to that in a second. And another part, the other parts are buses and registers. We're going to get to them in just a second. Now, the ALU's job, we'll start at the top. The program counter's job is to keep a tally of instructions, so it doesn't get lost. Okay, and if you imagine that inside a computer is just like a tick list. If this is your tick list, you'll have a list of instructions. There you go, there's all my instructions. And each one of them will have a number next to it. Now, in a computer, these are automated. So then the program counter's job is basically to tick off the numbers. I've done test 1, I've done test 2, I've done test 3, I've done test 4, I've done test 5. But it does that millions of times a second. Now, the job of the ALU is kind of like the brain of the CPU, because the CPU's job is being a brain, but the ALU really does most of the lion's share of the work, because the ALU is otherwise known as the arithmetic logic unit. And that job is basically, if we want to put it in terms, to do maths. Now, as we've talked about from last year when we do data representation, all computer programs are made up of ones and zeros. So if that's the case, when we want to add something, we basically have to do maths. Doesn't matter what instruction we do, there has to be a mathematical operation. So the ALU has a heck of a lot of work to do. Now the job of these two guys, buses and registers, are to pass data. Okay, and when you passing data around, the bus passes the data, the register stores the data. Okay? Now, what we've got, when we talk about registers, there are two main types. There is the MDR, and the NAR. Okay? You have a memory data register and a memory address register. And when it says register, this means somewhere to store stuff. Okay, so the memory data register will store, guess what? Data. And the memory address register will store the address. Okay? it usually stores the address of the data. So what happens is the computer, so the CPU, asks for an address, the CPU asks for an address, and then the address goes and gets the data. Okay, and that's how it works. Now, when we're passing data around, well, we need something to do that. So what we need to pass data around is something called a bus. Now, if you think about the easiest way to remember a bus is obviously a bus carries you around. So obviously, if you've got your little bus, there's my little bus. The bus carries lots and lots of people. Okay, and if you think of people as little chunks of data or little pieces of information, then you can understand how much stuff is being passed around. Now, a bus, there are two main types of bus. There is a data bus and an address bus. Never the twain shall meet. The data bus's job is obviously to pass data to the CPU, and I'll give you a guess what the address bus's job is. That's right, addresses to memory. Because what we have to do is that the CPU, there you go, there's my CPU, is going to ask for something, for an address, and ask for whatever's at the address. The address bus is going to carry that address, and then it's going to ping back, put the data on the data bus, and bring it back to the beginning. Right, so that details the main key parts of the CPU. What we're going to do in the next lesson is I'm going to talk about the other parts inside a computer and how they all link together, and something called the fetch execute cycle. Okay, but as long as you can remember the main key terms, which is bus, registers, the main terms of program counters, ALUs, and what CPU stands for and what it can do. As long as you can understand those bits, then you've got the key terms that will help you in GCSE.